Welcome to Everyday English with Annie. So, think about the most original artist or thinker or, creator that you know.
hmm
Now, what if I told you they have probably never had a truly original idea in their entire life?
It's a crazy thought, right?
Right. Like, what if every masterpiece, every groundbreaking invention is actually just, well, a series of incredibly well-disguised thefts?
Yeah.
Today, we are taking the concepts from Austin Kleon's book, Steal Like an Artist, and we are going to basically dismantle this agonizing, paralyzing pressure we all feel to be completely 100% original.
Exactly, because it is agonizing.
It really is. So the goal for this deep dive is to hand you a tangible, practical toolkit for being creative in your everyday life. Whether you're trying to write a novel, figure out a complex problem at work, or, and I know this is a big one for our audience, if you are using this deep dive for English listening practice and you're wondering how to use your media consumption, like social media, to actually boost your creativity.
Right, which is so relevant right now.
So relevant. Okay, let's unpack this. The central mind-bending premise here is that you do not need to be a genius to make great things. You just need to learn how to look at the world and, steal like an artist.
Yeah, and establishing the stakes here right up front is just critical.
Yeah.
Because, we are currently living in an age of unprecedented digital burnout
Oh, absolutely.
and severe information overload. Most of us are just staring at screens all day, consuming these endless social media feeds.
Yeah, just scrolling and scrolling.
Exactly. So rethinking how we approach creativity isn't just some cute exercise for painters or musicians.
Yeah, right.
It is absolutely essential for anyone trying to build a meaningful career, solve problems, or frankly, just stay sane in a noisy world.
Mm-hmm.
If you can change your relationship to how ideas are formed and how you consume the media around you, you fundamentally change how you interact with your work and your life.
I love that. But if grabbing ideas from everywhere is the secret, why do we feel so guilty doing it?
Well, it's the culture we live in.
Yeah. There is this pervasive myth of the lone genius that just completely blocks us. We're fed this idea that true creativity happens in a vacuum.
Right, like lightning striking.
Yes, exactly. Like a genius just wakes up one day, lightning strikes, and a perfectly original idea just falls out of the sky.
Yeah.
But the sources we're looking at today completely shatter that myth.
You really do.
There's this fantastic quote from the writer Jonathan Latham that really stood out to me. He points out that when people call a piece of art original, 9 out of 10 times, they just don't know the artist's references.
It's such a profound realization. And the text even points all the way back to the Bible for this, specifically the book of Ecclesiastes,
Oh, right.
which
Yeah.
explicitly states, there is nothing new under the sun. A genuinely good artist understands that nothing comes from nowhere.
Right. It's all connected.
Exactly. Every single creative work ever made builds on what came before it. We just have to let go of the burden of pure originality because, it simply does not exist.
It's so freeing to hear that. And to replace that burden, the sources introduce this concept called the genealogy of ideas, which completely rewired how I think about creativity. They offer this visual exercise for you to try. Imagine drawing 2 parallel lines on a blank piece of paper.
Okay.
How many lines are there? Your immediate thought is 2, right? You have the first line and the second line.
Naturally, yeah.
But if you look closer, there is a third line. It's a line of negative space that runs directly between them. So 1 + 1 = 3.
That visual is just a brilliant way to illustrate that every new idea is essentially a mashup or a remix of previous ideas.
Yeah.
When two concepts intersect, they create a third, entirely new concept in the space right between them. The analogy the author uses is genetics.
Oh, I love this part.
Right, so you have a mother and a father, and you possess physical features and traits from both of them.
Yeah.
But you are not just a copy of your mom or a copy of your dad. The sum of you is entirely unique. You are a remix of your parents and all of your ancestors.
But here is the crucial difference. And honestly, this is the most empowering part of the whole book. You cannot pick your biological family, right?
Yeah, you're stuffed with them.
Exactly.
Hmm.
But with the genealogy of ideas, you get to pick your own ancestors. You get to curate your own creative lineage.
Precisely. You aren't stuck with the creative environment you were born into. You can go out and find the people who view the world the way you want to view it.
Which is huge. Jay-Z actually talked about this at length. He described how he and his peers were kids growing up without fathers, so they went out and purposefully found fathers on the streets and in history.
Wow.
Yeah, they actively picked and chose the role models who would inspire the reality they were trying to build for themselves. And David Bowie took this philosophy to the extreme.
Oh, Bowie, yeah.
He famously claimed that the only art he would ever bother studying was art he could steal from.
Which brings us to a fundamental rule of this whole process, the garbage in, garbage out theory.
Yes, tell us about that.
Well, if you are entirely the product of what you consume, then you're only going to be as good as the stuff you surround yourself with.
That makes total sense.
Right. So your primary job as a creative person is to collect good ideas. The more high-quality ideas you collect, the more you have to choose from when it's time to be influenced.
I look at it like a chef's pantry. Imagine you're trying to cook a gourmet Michelin star meal, but you only stock your pantry with cheap junk food, stale potato chips, and expired ingredients.
Yeah, you're not going to make a great meal out of that.
Exactly. It doesn't matter how talented of a chef you are, you cannot magically transform that junk into a masterpiece. You have to stock your brain with high-quality ingredients.
That's a great way to look at it.
And this connects perfectly to how we use social media. If you're listening to this deep dive to practice your English, or if you're just someone who spends 3 hours a day scrolling, you might wonder, can social media actually make me more creative?
Right. Everyone wants to know that.
And the answer is yes, but only if you rigorously curate your feed. If you follow mindless clickbait, it's garbage in, garbage out. If you follow brilliant thinkers, artists, and complex English conversationalists, well, you are stocking a gourmet pantry.
What's fascinating here is we really should clarify the difference between being a collector and being a hoarder,
Oh, that's a good point.
because an artist is a highly selective collector. Hoarders grab indiscriminately, right, to keep every piece of junk they come across.
Yeah, just scrolling and saving everything.
Exactly. Artists only collect things they genuinely love, things that speak directly to their soul. Marcel Duchamp famously said, "I don't believe in art. I believe in artists."
Wow.
And that perspective gives us a highly actionable method for navigating this collection phase. The strategy is to basically climb your own family tree.
Because if you just try to study the entire history of a discipline, you'll be completely overwhelmed, right? Like, where do you even start?
Exactly. You'll just choke on the sheer volume of information. Instead, you study one thinker deeply. You find an artist, a writer, an activist, or a role model. Just one person you really love.
Okay, just one.
Yes, study everything there is to know about that one individual. Read their books, watch their interviews, figure out how they thought. Then, here's the magic step. You find 3 people that your chosen thinker loved and find out everything about them.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and then you just repeat that process. You climb up the branches of this tree as far as you can go.
Now, if I'm climbing this tree and finding all these brilliant ideas, I definitely need a place to put them. I noticed the sources mentioned something called a morgue file or a swipe file.
Yeah, it's a funny term.
It sounds a bit morbid. What exactly is that, and how does it fit into this collection phase?
It's actually an old newspaper term. Journalists used to keep a morgue file, which was a literal physical filing cabinet where they stored old articles, dead stories, and reference materials.
Oh, okay.
So when a news story broke, they could dig into the morgue to find background information to bring the new piece to life. For a creative person, a morgue file or a swipe file is just a repository for the things you want to steal.
Okay, so it's a collection of inspiration.
Exactly. It can be a physical notebook you carry in your pocket, a folder on your phone, or a shoebox full of torn-out magazine pages. Whenever you see something that makes your brain light up, you swipe it. You put it in the file.
That's so practical.
Right. And later, when you're staring at a blank page and feeling completely uninspired, you just open up that file and let your past self feed ideas to your present self.
That makes the collection phase feel so tangible. But let's look at the next step, which is where things usually fall apart for people.
Oh yeah, the actual creating part.
Right. You've climbed your tree, you have a morgue file bursting with brilliant ideas from your heroes, and now you actually have to make something. Suddenly, you sit down and you are hit with this absolute wall of imposter syndrome.
The worst feeling.
We all know it. That awful feeling of sitting down at your desk and just waiting for someone to tap you on the shoulder and say, we figured you out, you're phony, you have no idea what you're doing.
It is a universal experience, truly.
Yeah.
The great secret of all creative work is that nobody knows where the good stuff comes from. The professionals just show up to do their thing every day, hoping to catch lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
The solution to imposter syndrome provided in the text is a classic piece of advice, but applied very literally. It's fake it till you make it.
Which can mean 2 things, right? You can pretend to be someone you're not until you actually grow into that person,
Right.
or you can pretend to be making something until you actually make something.
Yes. And the sources share a wonderful anecdote about the musician Patti Smith, and her friend, the photographer Robert Mapplethorpe, to illustrate this.
Oh, I read this. It's great.
When they first moved to New York City, they desperately wanted to be artists. But they didn't know how to start, so they dressed up in bohemian clothing, went to Washington Square Park where all the real artists hung out, and they literally just pretended to be artists.
They treated it entirely like theater.
Exactly.
And there is a real psychological mechanism at play there. If you treat your creative workspace like a stage, your clothes like a costume, and your pens and paper like props, you bypass your own ego.
That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah, because the pressure is off you as an individual. If the painting is bad, it's not a personal failure, it's just the character you were playing experimenting on stage.
That concept, sometimes called enclothed cognition, is incredibly powerful. By adopting a persona, you free yourself to make mistakes. You have to start by copying.
Right.
Nobody comes out of the womb knowing who they are or having a distinct creative voice. We learn by pretending to be our heroes. I mean, think about how children learn to speak English, or any language for that matter.
They mimic everything.
Exactly. They mimic the sounds their parents make until they understand the structure well enough to form their own sentences.
Mm.
The Beatles, arguably the greatest songwriting team in history, started as a cover band.
Really?
Yeah. Paul McCartney openly admitted they spent their early years intensely emulating Buddy Holly, Little Richard, and Jerry Lee Lewis. They had to play other people's music to figure out how to write their own.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. I was looking through the sources, and I found this chart comparing good theft to bad theft.
Ah, yes, the chart.
And this is where I really started wrestling with the material. If we are explicitly telling you to go out and copy your heroes, isn't that just plagiarism?
Right, people always ask that.
Yeah, like if I take a piece of art, change the color slightly, and call it mine, where exactly is the moral line between stealing like an artist and just ripping someone off?
It is the most critical question in the book, and that chart provides the ethical compass. Bad theft is entirely about degrading the original creator. It is skimming the surface. Stealing from only one person, plagiarizing their exact work, imitating it without understanding the soul behind it, and just ripping them off for personal gain. That is a knockoff.
Right, that's bad theft.
Good theft, however, is fundamentally about honoring the original. It involves deep, obsessive study. And most importantly, good theft means stealing from many different sources, not just one.
Oh, many sources.
Yes. If you steal from one person, it's plagiarism. If you steal from 100 people, it's research. You take those 100 different influences, you give credit to your ancestors, and you synthesize them into something entirely transformed.
So the goal isn't to perfectly replicate one hero, it's to blend all of them together.
Yes, and there's a brilliant story of the late basketball star Kobe Bryant that brings this concept home. Kobe freely admitted that all of his signature moves on the basketball court were stolen.
Really? All of them?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
He obsessively watched tapes of his heroes and tried to replicate their exact footwork and shooting forms. But initially, when he tried to execute those stolen moves on the court, he realized he couldn't pull them off perfectly.
Because he physically wasn't them?
Exactly.
Yeah.
He didn't have the same height, the same wingspan, or the same muscle structure as the guys he was stealing from. He physically could not make a perfect copy. He was forced to adapt their moves to fit his own body.
Wow.
And this highlights a beautiful, fundamental flaw about human beings. We are fundamentally incapable of making perfect copies. Our failure to copy our heroes perfectly is exactly where we discover our own unique style.
That is so powerful. Emulation goes one step further than imitation. Imitation is just the Xerox copy, right? But emulation is when your imitation breaks down and accidentally becomes your own thing.
Exactly.
You copy your heroes, you examine exactly where you fall short, and whatever's sitting in that gap, that is what makes you different.
It completely flips how we view our shortcomings. Your limitations aren't ruining your work, they are defining it. They are your unique voice trying to get out.
It's completely counterintuitive. We usually view our inability to, draw perfectly or write perfectly as a reason to quit, but instead it's the very foundation of our style.
Right.
Okay, moving forward. You are collecting ideas in your morgue file, you are wearing your artist costume to beat imposter syndrome, and you are bravely attempting to emulate your heroes. But practically speaking, what exactly should you try to create?
The golden rule in the text is a brilliant subversion of the standard advice you always hear.
Yeah.
People always say, write what you know.
Right, you hear that everywhere.
But the author says, don't write what you know. Write the book you want to read.
Yeah.
make the art you want to see, start the business you wish existed.
The Jurassic Park anecdote is the perfect illustration of this. The author of the book tells a story about being 10 years old. The movie Jurassic Park had just come out in theaters, and the minute they walked out, they were absolutely dying for a sequel.
Like every kid in the 90s.
Exactly. The craving for more of that world was overwhelming. So the very next day, this 10-year-old sat down at an old PC and just started typing a sequel themselves. They didn't know they were writing fan fiction. They just desperately wanted more of the story to exist in the world, so they forced it into existence.
It's a wonderful manifesto for creation. But notice how that story involves sitting down at a computer.
Oh, yeah.
The text warns us about a massive trap in how we try to execute our ideas today. The clear directive is, step away from the screen.
I couldn't agree with this more. We are trying to generate these raw, vulnerable, messy ideas, and we're trying to do it by staring at a glowing rectangle.
It just doesn't work well.
No. If I can throw in an analogy here, trying to generate creative ideas entirely on a laptop is like trying to learn how to dance by only reading an instruction manual.
No, that's good.
You can understand the theory of the dance steps in your head, sure, but your body has to actually move across the floor to feel the rhythm.
That analogy hits the nail on the head, and it's backed up by some heavy hitters in the creative world.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The information design pioneer Edward Tufte said, "I have stared long enough at glowing flat rectangles of computer screens. Let us give more time for doing things in the real world." And the comedian John Cleese noted that while we don't exactly know where our best ideas come from, we definitely know we don't get them from our laptops.
Why is that? Like, what is the actual mechanism making the computer so bad for brainstorming?
It really comes down to neuroscience and sensory engagement. Art that only comes from the head feels sterile. You have to find a way to bring your physical body into your work.
Okay, so making it physical.
Exactly. The physical motion of your hands actually kickstarts your brain into thinking differently. Shuffling physical sticky notes on a wall, physically cutting paper with scissors, feeling the friction of a pencil, even smelling the fumes of a marker.
Yeah, engaging the senses.
Right. These tactile actions engage your senses and alter how your brain processes information. A computer is a fantastic tool for editing and publishing, but it brings out the uptight perfectionist in us way too early in the process. When you brainstorm on a laptop, you start hitting the backspace key before you even finish typing the thought.
Because the screen makes everything look polished and permanent immediately. You don't want to mess it up.
Exactly.
So the practical solution the book offers is the two-desk system. You literally set up two entirely different workspaces in your room or office. Desk number 1 is the analog desk. There is nothing electronic allowed on this desk. No screens, no phones, no tablets, just markers, pens, pencils, paper, maybe your morgue file.
It's a safe space for messes.
Yes. This is where you generate your messy ideas. You pretend it's kindergarten craft time. And then desk number 2 is the digital desk. That's where your computer, your monitor, and your software live. This is where you go only after you have the raw ideas to edit them and get them ready for the real world.
It creates a hard physical boundary between generating and editing. You work at the analog station, making a mess until you lose steam. Then, you gather up the best pieces of that raw material, move over to the digital station, and execute the final product. It's an incredibly effective loop.
So we've moved you away from the screen. You are sitting at a messy analog desk full of ideas you've swiped from your heroes, feeling the rhythm with your hands. But we arrive at one final hurdle.
Right.
The text points out that in our current age of infinite information and endless social media feeds, the final step of creativity isn't adding more things. Creativity is actually subtraction.
We often operate under the assumption that having infinite choices is the ultimate freedom. But the reality is that nothing is more paralyzing than limitless possibilities.
Oh, totally.
If you sit down at a blank canvas and tell yourself you can paint absolutely anything in the world using any color imaginable, you will likely end up painting nothing. The sheer weight of those choices is terrifying.
So what does this all mean? If having everything is paralyzing, how do you break the block?
You place artificial constraints on yourself. You deliberately limit your time, your space, or your materials.
It sounds backwards.
It seems totally contradictory to the idea of artistic freedom, I know. But when it comes to creative work, limitations equal freedom. Write a song, but you only have your 30-minute lunch break to do it. Paint a painting, but you're only allowed to use the color blue. Build a prototype, but you can only use the trash in your recycling bin.
It turns constraints into a superpower. It is so deeply liberating to realize that not having enough time, not having a big budget, or not having the most expensive software isn't a valid excuse not to create.
Right.
Those limitations are the exact catalyst that forces your brain to be creative in the first place. The ultimate proof of this is the legendary Dr. Seuss story in the sources.
Yes, it is the perfect example of subtraction. Dr. Seuss wrote his famous book, The Cat in the Hat, using a heavily restricted vocabulary of only 236 different words.
Which is already crazy.
Right. But his editor was so astounded by this achievement that he made a bet with him. The editor bet Dr. Seuss that he couldn't write an entire children's book using only 50 different words.
And the result of that extreme, seemingly impossible constraint was Green Eggs and Ham.
Incredible.
It went on to become one of the best-selling children's books in history. He didn't need the entire English dictionary, he just needed a very tight box to work inside of to force his brain to innovate.
The artist Saul Steinberg summed it up beautifully. He said, "What we respond to in any work of art is the artist's struggle against his or her limitations.
I love that.
It is very often what an artist chooses to leave out that makes the art interesting. Choosing what to ignore, choosing what to subtract, is the ultimate defining act of the creative process. In an age where we can access every piece of information ever created with the swipe of a finger, the people who get ahead will be the ones who figure out what to ignore."
I think that is the perfect note to wrap up on. Let's distill everything we've talked about in this deep dive into 4 concrete, actionable steps that you can take today.
Sounds good.
Number 1, go to the library or just take a long walk without your phone to start collecting high-quality ideas. Remember, garbage in, garbage out. Curate your inputs.
Number 2, start your morgue file. Carry a notebook with you everywhere, or make a dedicated folder on your phone and save the brilliant things you find so your future self can steal them.
Number 3, set up an analog space. It doesn't have to be a whole desk, just a physical corner of a table with paper and markers where screens are strictly banned.
And number 4, which is honestly my favorite piece of advice in the whole book.
Oh, the nap.
Yes, take a nap. Give your brain the physical, offline downtime it needs to process all these new connections in the background.
Those are fantastic starting points for building a creative life.
They really are. And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over long after this conversation ends. We spent a lot of time talking about subtraction and how our unique human limitations are what create our personal style. But we are rapidly entering an era of artificial intelligence. If creativity relies on stealing and remixing, well, an AI can steal and remix the entire internet in a millisecond.
Right.
But an AI doesn't have a physical body, it doesn't have imposter syndrome, and doesn't fail to copy things perfectly. So if creativity is ultimately defined by our human limitations, where does human limitation fit into an algorithm?
Yeah.
In a world of perfect digital copies, your messy, imperfect, analog humanity might just be your most valuable asset.
Wow. That entirely shifts how we look at the future of art and work. What an amazing question to walk away with. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Now go step away from the screen, grab some markers, embrace your limitations, and go make something you want to see in the world.